After cutting the last branch from the tree with scissors, the young girl with pink hair stretched, wondering out loud that she had been working all day. She was tired and was about to leave, when suddenly the tree behind her began to tease her with cries that nothing would cut it. Hearing this, the girl immediately threateningly put the huge scissors towards the trunk, promising that if he blathered again, she would definitely cut something off for him. The tree obeyed, dissatisfiedly shaking off the dirt from her hands. She thought with a dissatisfied face that she was already tired of everything. The beauty sat down under a tree to rest, but suddenly remembered that she had been living in this place for 19 years. Her name is Shirabi, and she died 19 years ago. Her name used to be Lee Ji-hyun. She was an ordinary student who was just taking the entrance exams to the university. From a past life, Shirabi remembers walking home from school and looking at the English test results on her phone. But suddenly she hears the cry of another student, who is crying because she failed the exam and will not be able to enter the university. Her friends who have gathered around reassure her that this time the exams have been made more difficult, which means the passing score should be lower. But the student does not stop crying. Ji-hyun didn't pay attention and walked further across the road. She is upset that because of the stupid education system, children have to sweat for good scores. When suddenly the girl notices on the edge of the roof of the building the very student who failed the exam. One man at the foot tries to stop her. Ji-hyun is worried about the girl's life, so he shouts at her not to do this. Shirabi herself regrets that she intervened then. She, with her arms stretched out to her, encourages the suicidal woman that the final results have not yet been published, and it is stupid to draw hasty conclusions. The main character does not understand whether she did this either because of moral principles or because of a sense of justice. The girl on the roof bursts into tears and says that if her parents find out the exam results, something terrible will happen to her. Ji-hyun assures that everything will be fine. Hoping to bring the girl to reason, she says that she goes to the same school with her, bringing the embroidered name on her uniform as proof. Ultimately, the suicidal girl hears from her classmate a proposal to just go down and talk, to which she agrees. But suddenly her foot slips, causing the girl to fall from the roof. At that moment, Ji-hyun, without knowing why, felt that she had to save this man. She screams desperately, fearing for her life. The girl rushed forward and extended her arms forward, hoping to catch the suicide bomber, who was about to touch the asphalt. However, she overestimated her capabilities. The body flying down crushed the savior herself, as a result of which she said goodbye to life. This was Shirabi's last memory from her past life. She sighs heavily and says that everything is useless. She gets up from the ground, while the plant bombards her with questions about whether she will still cut the branches. The girl politely asks the tree to be silent. Shirabi was reborn in a certain empire of Ventria, a very popular fantasy world where everyone is born with some kind of ability. The more this power is developed, the more powerful it will be, and the best in their field will be invited to serve the emperor. The main character's ability is to hear what the plants are saying. She constantly developed it, as a result of which she became a recognized gardener. Shirabi ran to the house, opened the door, and right on the threshold plopped down on the floor from fatigue. But suddenly she notices a strange movement in the room, from which she rises and asks if there is anyone here besides her. The gardener notices a handsome young brunette who does not take his eyes off her. The guy, whose legs are slightly visible through, sits down next to the stranger and asks if she really sees him. Shirabi seemed to swallow her tongue. She doesn't know who is in front of her, and feels as strange as when talking with plants. But the girl understands that this stranger could be anyone, so she decided to defend herself. She threw berries from her bag right in his face. The guy screamed in pain on his forehead where the berry hit, and the gardener thought that she was able to defeat the uninvited guest. The young man began to be indignant because the main character let go of her hands and, like a ghost, approached her again. She was even more frightened than before and again poured berries at the stranger. Some time passes. Shirabi and the guy calm down and decided to talk peacefully at the table, but the girl still reminds him that it's all his fault. Having received nothing in response from him, Shirabi finally decides to ask at least the stranger's name. The guy indifferently says that his name is Pierre, to which the gardener is indignant, saying that his name is too strange and asks him to name his real one, Korean. Shibari, setting an example for himself, affectionately introduces himself by the name Lee Hyun, after which he sternly asks to repeat it in the same way. Pierre asks about the Korean name, and the girl says that she cannot understand why it is so difficult for him to say it. The young man admits that he has good reasons for not giving his real name. Noticing the same bag of berries on the table, he asks Shirabi for forgiveness so that those berries do not fly towards his face again. The girl accepts the apology and puts the bag closer to herself. She asks Pierre who he is, a man or a spirit. The guy wanted to answer, but she interrupted him, reasoning that he couldn't be a ghost, because she saw him and could touch him. Shirabi eventually asks if he is a living tree spirit, to which he readily agrees, clarifying that he is an amnesiac spirit. Pierre wanted to ask her to take care of him, but the gardener suddenly stood up and, sighing, said that she was wasting her time and left. The main character decided to continue doing her usual gardening chores. Pierre finds her, approaches her, and asks what the girl is doing. It gives an obvious answer. It works. The guy notices the branches that Shirabi is planting in pots and says that he thought that the branches of plants die if they are cut. The gardener, with a pleasant smile, says that if someone else cuts the branch, she will die, but if she does it, then not. Suddenly, Pierre hears something strange. The girl asks one seedling to wake up quickly, because tomorrow he will go to a new good owner. Suddenly, the seedling sleepily says that he wants to sleep a little more, which shocks the guy, who hears the voices of plants for the first time. Shirabi decides to use magic on the plant, from which an ordinary dry twig turns into a beautiful green bush. Seeing this, the frightened Pierre warily asks what this place is and who she is. The girl tells him to read the sign outside the house. After reading the sign, Shirabi Flower Garden, the guy instantly remembered that he was standing next to the best gardener of the Ventrian Empire. The young man says that with such strong abilities, the main character can work in the Imperial Palace and asks why she is still here. Shirabi says she receives job offers every week, but her small store is her favorite. The girl adds that she did not go to work in a palace with a strict daily routine. She earns more when she works for herself. Staring at the sun, the gardener decided that while they waited for the rain, they would take a break. Shirabi quickly introduces Pierre to the work, handing over a pot with a bush, and tells him not to be afraid and not to stand like a pillar. The guy clumsily picks up the pot, which makes the girl laugh very much as a professional. The gardener thoughtfully notes that her new friend does not look like a spirit, without even noticing that he is not reflected in the window. At this moment, someone calls the girl from behind, which is why she is forced to switch her attention from the guy to the buyer. But instead of greeting the client, Shirabi suddenly grabbed Pierre's hand and ran into the house with him. Leaving a sign on the door that said closed, the girl hid behind the closet, ordering the guy to be quiet. He still tried to find out from her about what was happening, because no one could hear him anyway. The client, who turned out to be an elegant old man, was desperately trying to reach the store owner. He says that only she can solve the problem he came to, and promises to first double and then triple the fee for solving it. The gardener, hearing the clink of coins, immediately opens the door to the client, asking forgiveness for such a long wait. The swindler, with the brightest smile and apology, escorts the guest to the store. Pierre clearly did not expect such a brazen money-making scheme from such a nice girl. Having arranged a cup of tea for himself, Shirabi asks the old man what his problem is, for which he is willing to pay 3 times as much. The client, having laid out a map on the table, points his finger at the mountain. The girl says that climbing it will not be easy and clarifies what happened there. The old man says that on this mountain there is an almost completely burnt-out mansion of a high-ranking person. The gardens around it are in terrible condition. The uncle claims that nothing grows from plants there, even weeds are very rare. He asks the question whether it can all be restored. Having heard from the girl that it was difficult to restore burnt plants, the grandfather was seriously worried. Greatly saddened, the man asked if this meant that nothing could be fixed now. Shirabi replied that everything is possible with only one condition. Smiling maliciously, the girl says that such an operation will cost the old man a very large sum. The grandfather assures the gardener that she doesn't have to worry about money. She just needs to agree and name the amount. Having heard such pleasant words, the main character takes up a piece of paper and a pen to calculate the price of the service. After small calculations, in which she took into account the size of the mansion, made a discount and multiplied everything by 3, the figure was 180. The girl gave the written check to her grandfather. He sighed heavily, but agreed to pay 180 zlotys. He asks if she can complete the task in a month, to which Shirabi replies that she will complete everything in 3 days. The old man puts an advance payment of 50 zlotys on the table and promises to pay the rest when he sees the result. Having received the money, the girl began to escort the client out, promising that in 3 days she would be waiting for him in the store with the rest of the money. After getting rid of the old man, Shirabi sat back at the table and began counting her money. Pierre decided to ask how she was going to revive the whole garden in 3 days. His girlfriend, without an ounce of concern, replies that everything is in order and this period of work is more than enough for her. Throwing the bag of money, the girl said that he could go with her if he was so interested, briefly noting that it was expected to rain today. However, once at night at the gates of the mansion, Shirabi stopped feeling so confident. Out of fatigue, she sat down on the ground, trying to regulate her shortness of breath from the fact that because of the replica trees they had been walking in a circle all this time. Pierre asks Shirabi a question that was the last straw before her outrage. Why is she angry if she is probably used to hearing the trees? The girl complains that he doesn't know anything, and that everything would go smoothly if she knew the way. She decides to get down to business and touch the old gate, which she assumed that the events happened quite a long time ago. Shirabi walked through them and touched a tree branch, which crumbled into crumbs on her fingers. She says things are worse than she expected and that the fire happened about 8 years ago. And this fire was not simple. Someone deliberately burned everything with their abilities, which is why it is impossible to fully use healing magic in this place. About to use magic, Shirabi says that he will not be able to restore the forest, and only time, rain, and sunlight will help. Pierre asks what the girl is going to do now, to which she, sitting down on the ground, says that she is going to rid this place of vile forces. She asks her partner to take care of her if she falls unconscious. Shirabi touched the ground with her palms, after which her power began to take effect. From her hands, magic seeped through the earth into all the plants and trees, which began to bloom before our eyes. In a few seconds, an experienced gardener turned a long-dead forest into a beautiful, blooming garden. Pierre, who witnessed such a miracle, could not believe his eyes when he saw the result of Shirabi's work. Rising from the ground, the girl said that she had invested a little more spiritual strength than required, after which she lost consciousness. The young man deftly caught her, thanks to which the sorceress remained unharmed. Looking at the girl's sleeping face, the guy wondered in surprise whether she was really an ordinary gardener. Night passes. A carriage passes along the road in which an expensively dressed young man and his servant are sitting. The gentleman asks why he should go to that mountain. His servant tells him not to be so upset about this and advises him to trust the old man at least this time. Driving past a lonely shop with a closed sign, the man wanted to tell the gentleman about the changed landscape around the mansion, but decided to remain silent. The young man wanted to ask what it all meant, but the servant waved him off and apologized. The carriage arrived at that very mansion, which is now covered with grass, strewn with flowers and green trees. Looking at all this beauty, the gentleman cannot believe his eyes. Touching the trunk of a once-living tree, the man asks the servant who was able to revive this garden. Slightly embarrassed, the servant wanted to say that it was all thanks to the old man's request, but the gentleman interrupted him. He rudely repeats the question about what he wants to know, thanks to whose hands the garden was so transformed. He, noticing that the gentleman is angry, calls the name of the gardener Shirabi, which immediately seems familiar to the young man. He almost immediately remembers that this is the same girl who every time refused the offer to work in the Imperial Palace. The gentleman also recalls that her personality is often discussed by noble ladies. Considering that Her Majesty was now carrying his younger brother, the young man ordered the servant to make the same beautiful trees in the Imperial garden. Peering at the flowers on the branches, the gentleman thought that he would really like someone else to see this beauty, because he would like it. The main character, meanwhile, listens to a cheerful man in her store. He says that this time she did something big. Playfully pushing the famous gardener, who is clearly not happy to see him, he reminds him that today is the day of collecting money. Shirabi went about her business, which made the man very happy. Pierre doesn't understand what kind of fundraising this is. The gardener, who loves money very much, does not want to give away her bag with 50 zlotys that she recently earned. Very reluctantly, the girl still gives the money to the man, although Pierre tried to dissuade her. After counting the coins, the old man said that the interest for this month amounted to 20 zlotys, but he would take all 50 and offset the payment of the debt. The old man leaves the store, reminding the debtor that she only has 2,512 coins left to pay. Shirabi, drowning in tears, looked after him. Wishing the girl that next month she too would not have problems paying in installments, he slammed the door. Immediately after this, Pierre attacked with questions about who this man was, why he took the money, and what else he owed. Wiping away his tears, Shirabi calmly replies that duty is duty and that there is nothing surprising about it. The young man was surprised when he learned that she had not borrowed anything, but was paying off her debts instead of her parents' friend. The girl is indignant that he does not know about the main cliché of dramas, the poor main character, to which he says that he doesn't even know what a drama is. Shirabi explains that according to the canon, her family lived happily until they became impoverished due to an incorrectly drawn-up surety agreement. Next, the girl wanted to tell how she was born, but she remembered silent memories from her past life when she died due to suicide. She realizes that in her previous life everything ended badly, and in this life she is up to her neck in problems. Shirabi says that she must continue to earn money no matter what, but in the end she always ends up with nothing. Pierre listened to her silently all this time until he realized that she had fallen asleep so soundly that she did not even react to touch. The guy decided to take care of her. He carried the tired lady to the bed and covered her with a blanket. Looking at a strand of her hair, the young man conducts a monologue about how hard it is for her, and that he will essentially become another problem for her. Having played enough with her hair, Pierre wished the girl a good rest and sleep. But 2 days later, his patience breaks. He loudly wakes up Shirabi, from which she instantly wakes up. But the girl grabbed the blanket back, screaming at the ghost to leave her alone. However, the guy turned out to be stronger. He snatched the blanket from the beauty, causing her to fall off the bed onto the floor. Pierre proves to Shirabi that she can't sleep anymore. If she continues, she will die of starvation. But it seems that the girl does not hear him, because she is staring at the view from the window from where the rays of the sun are shining brightly on her. After that, without attaching much importance to her friend's words, she climbs back onto the bed to continue sleeping. However, Pierre is not satisfied with this. He forbids the girl to continue to bask in bed, taking her into his arms. Shirabi never expected this. The guy brings the gardener to the restroom, sits her in the bathtub and showers her, but the girl still can't get over the shock. Pierre broke the silence between them, asking when the main character would start washing. Flushing with anger, Shirabi takes the shower head from him and kicks him out of the room. The girl assumes that he has gone crazy. Otherwise, why would he be interested in whether she will die of hunger or not? Usually, she only heard threats from people. At this moment, she notices her reflection in the mirror, in which she saw herself in a sleepy and unkempt form. The girl takes care of her hygiene, wondering out loud at the ugliness she just saw. The girl carried out all her hygiene procedures and left the bathroom. She notices Pierre, who is taking care of a potted plant in her place. The girl also notices his feet, which are slightly visible through. With a cup of tea, Shirabi sits down on a chair and tells the guy that he won't receive any money for his work, and she doesn't have social benefits either. Pierre does not understand her words, after which the girl says that she is simply warning him, but in exchange, she can give him a roof over his head. The young man asks her if this means that she wants to hire him. Shirabi replies that this is generally possible, because there is no need to feed someone like him at all. However, Pierre says that if necessary, he can eat, to which she says that this is unrealistic for a ghost. Hearing the girl's last words, the guy decided to show her something and asked her to give him her hand. Shirabi didn't quite understand what this meant, but she still extended her palm to him. Then Pierre asked her to pay attention to the mirror in which both she and he were reflected. The main character could not control her emotions and choked on her tea in surprise. The ghost did not expect such a sharp reaction and helped the girl clear her throat. Clearing his throat, but still in shock, Shirabi begs Pierre about how he pulled off such a trick. He says that he doesn't know either, but remembers how in the garden at the palace he picked up the gardener in his arms to take her to the store. And at that moment the young man noticed that his leg was not translucent, as it was before. He concluded that by touching Shirabi, she becomes material. The young man returned to cleaning, and the girl went to look at the mirror. She says she feels like she has become stronger. She also says that if she uses her abilities until she is completely drained, her threshold will rise slightly. However, Pierre does not pay attention to her words, and holding out a towel, offers her to dry her wet hair after the shower. The girl in turn remembers that she is still offended by him and rejects his help. The guy compares Shirabi to a child and wonders how he got to this point. He complains out loud that he has lived for so many years and is now forced to dry his friend's hair himself. The girl heard this and asked about his age. She remembers that Pierre is a spirit and he can be very old. She still asks him this question. The guy said that he was 19, which greatly surprised the gardener because it turns out that they were the same age. Pierre was surprised by this fact, to which Shirabi said that she should be surprised here that the spirit is only 19 years old. He wanted to clarify whether the main character really turned 19, because according to him, she looks very small. For such expressions, the girl threw him to the floor and she went to open the doors for the arriving clients. Opening the door, she immediately announced that today she would only accept 30 people. After some time, the spirit and the gardener came to a palace resplendent with luxury with an amazing landscape around. Not noticing any obvious problems with vegetation in this place, Pierre asked the obvious question, why did they come here? Shirabi says it's all about the two pillars of the business, taking care of repeat customers and taking care of repeat customers. The girl adds that there is also a third point, which also consists of taking care of regular customers. The embarrassed guy says that this is what he wants to know. Why such concern? And then he says for your information that they came to the Duke's residence. She then asks about how she had to go to the palace and that a guy named Glam had been here before. A crowd has gathered around the gardener's shop, shouting out offers of work. One offers to hire him to redecorate the mansion, while the other demands that the renovation of the new restaurant be completed on time. Pierre, leaning on the trunk of a plant, is surprised by what he sees, comparing this crowd to a war. But suddenly, no one except him notices the strange glow that has arisen in the place where he touched the tree. Meanwhile, the crowd is being dispersed by the Emperor's envoys who are coming to Shirabi's store. They were guards for one very noble man who was sent to a talented gardener. After a while, this important person tearfully begs the main character to listen to his proposal. He hands Shirabi a beautiful bag with 100 gold, in the hope that she will at least give her consent. Seeing the money, the girl immediately remembered the creditor who loves to take money from her. She pushes him out of her thoughts. The gardener did not even think that the representative of the Imperial family himself would come to her. She is sure that the Imperial prince sent him. The girl clarifies that if a man came so that she could become a gardener under the Emperor, then in that case the Imperial family would be in charge of her. Shirabi says that she again refuses such an offer and asks him to leave her alone. However, the man is not ready to accept refusal, so he throws the bag of coins directly into the girl's hands. Kneeling down, he says that the prince gave him a direct order to assign the gardener to work in the Imperial palace. He also says that he asked many Imperial gardeners about the tree that Shirabi planted. They all said that this type of tree does not exist, and the crown prince wants to give his future younger brother a garden in which the same tree will be planted. The man admits that Shirabi is a more talented gardener than the current one in the Imperial palace. However, the main character decides that he just wants to overwhelm her with work, so she advises him to fool someone else. At the same time, the girl admits that they really won't be able to plant a seedling of that tree and grow it as quickly as she can. The drooping man says that this is all due to the incompetence of the current Imperial gardeners. At this moment, Pierre intervenes. He gently touches Shirabi's shoulder and asks why she is doing all this. Out of surprise, the gardener screams loudly and swears at the guy that he scared her so much. The representative of the Imperial family did not understand what had happened and asked why the girl was so scared. Shirabi says she just heard a strange sound and decides to return to the topic of conversation. The man asks her how much the service will cost. Having set a price of 4 gold, the girl says that the advance payment of 104 gold is only 50. Sighing with relief, the man gives her a beautiful necklace and says that now she can freely enter the Imperial palace. He warns that everything she does in the palace will need to be laid out directly to the master. Shirabi happily agrees with everything, while the man thinks to himself about how someone like her could be accepted into the palace. Leaving the store, the representative of the Imperial family reminded the gardener to come to him after work, after which he slammed the door. The girl tiredly sat down on a chair. Pierre poured her a glass of water. Shirabi asks the guy why he wants to enter the Imperial palace so badly. Noticing his puzzled expression, she asks that he didn't want her to become an Imperial gardener in order to get into the palace. Pierre says that now he can do this, only with her personal presence. However, Shirabi wags his finger negatively. The girl says that the palace is protected by a powerful magical barrier and that you cannot get there without permission. She wonders why the guy needs this so much. Having heard nothing in response, the gardener relaxes and drinks a glass of water, proud that she got the job without unnecessary red tape. Only she doesn't know what to do next. Remembering that same trick with reviving the forest, Pierre asks if she can pull off the same thing as then, to which Shirabi says that she is afraid of making a mistake because the crown prince himself wants to see her. Ironically asking herself why he can't leave her alone, the girl leaves the table. A guy sits down in her place and, as if about to start a serious conversation, says that only she can help him with something. Suddenly, the main character appears again near him in a different image. She decided that she had no choice and would have to go to the palace. Already leaving the door, she asks Pierre what he is going to do, because she cannot understand him. The girl ordered him not to stand like a pillar but rather to follow her, while the guy wanted to tell her something but did not have time. Time returns to the present, where Pierre and Shirabi are standing at the Duke's gate. Everything that happened before this caused the ghost to think that they would go to the Imperial Palace. The gardener introduces herself to the guards, after which the gate opens for them. Walking through the luxurious courtyard, the girl reminds them that if they want to make money, they don't need to feel sorry for themselves. The guy says that there is no point in this because the loan shark will take all the money anyway, to which the gardener tells him not to spoil all the motivation. Shirabi aggressively assures that even if she does not have a lot of money, harvesting seedlings is not a useless task. The girl walked further towards the entrance to the palace, offended by Pierre for such words. The ghost, meanwhile, remembers the incident when he touched the tree trunk and a glow appeared. Then the guy heard the tree, mentioning a man who would be loved by the people, saying that he could not believe that he was still in this wretched shop because of that rumor. Pierre asks the tree spirit why, if he knows everything, he is not going to tell Shirabi anything. The creature, crawling out of the tree, says that they cannot interfere in human affairs without the permission of their direct destiny. The guy wonders if this means he shouldn't ask questions. The spirit reminds that Pierre does not have a physical shell, and he stands between life and death while wanting to be treated as a person. Watching the gardener, he recognizes the strength of her abilities, even though she is still very young. The entity expresses the opinion that there is no person in the entire world who can compare with it, so they should be careful. Pierre does not understand his words, from which the spirit explains that life is more difficult for strong people, and they are usually alone. On behalf of all the tree spirits, the creature says that they would like Shirabi to realize her power as late as possible, thus avoiding danger. Dissolving into thin air, the spirit asks the guy to take care of the girl until he leaves the store forever. He mentions that the gardener has been coping with all the difficulties herself since childhood. They cannot give her love. Only people can do that. Peering at the trail of his friend, Pierre realizes that although he listened to the spirit then, he still does not know how to help her. Meanwhile, the servant greets the girl and says that she has heard a lot about Mrs. Shirabi. The gardener became embarrassed and said that she should have come earlier, for which she apologizes. The servant, on the contrary, says that she should thank the main character for such care. She brings the couple to the Imperial garden, after which she asks Shirabi to take care of its beauty. Having happily started work, the girl boasts that she has already earned as many as 4 gold coins. Pierre says it looks like regular tree maintenance work and asks if she does it to get quality branches. He also adds that the gardener can now move freely between the residence and the Imperial Palace. Suddenly, Shirabi hears words that make him stick his tongue out at him. The guy thinks it's stupid to invite a thief like her to the Imperial Palace. She says that her skills are simply very good and asks the young man to bring a stepladder, which he immediately does. Having deftly made her way along the stepladder and branches, the girl finds herself high in the tree. Pierre warns her not to fall, to which Shirabi tells him to get ready to catch her. The girl's last words made the guy blush. He turned them over in his head while the gardener continued her work. But the girl, seeing his idleness, forced him to come out of his fantasies and continue collecting branches. Having finished her business, Shirabi jumped down from the tree, ready to move on to the next one. But suddenly she notices a completely dry tree. The girl cannot understand what happened to it and why it is in such a state. Using her magic, she tries to help the tree, but not a word is heard from him. Pierre asks if this tree has died, to which the gardener answers in the negative because she slightly feels his spirit energy. She continues to try to make the tree talk, but it does not lead to any result. But suddenly the main character is struck by a brilliant idea, and she asks Pierre to give her an axe. He thought that she wanted to chop off something from the plant and was just about to fulfill the order, but realized that he could not take the axe in his hand. Pierre is confused because for unknown reasons, in addition to his leg, his arm has also begun to show through. Shirabi got tired of waiting and picked up the tool herself, calling the guy useless because he couldn't handle such little things. The girl walked towards the tree, and the offended Pierre insisted that he was not at all useless as she thought. Meanwhile, the gardener, without any sympathy on her face, swung her axe directly at the dried-up imperial plant. It was at this moment that the tree ordered the girl to stop. Fortunately, the blade did not manage to damage it. Shirabi removes the axe from the frightened tree, expressing joy that she was able to talk to him. The girl says that this was her last warning, and next time there won't be even a stump left of him. Having analyzed the tree, which could not have suffered so much due to disease or lack of nutrition, the gardener orders him to tell the whole truth. The couple was perplexed when it turned out that the tree was so damaged due to the child's pranks and stress. When Pierre was surprised about the stress in the trees, Shirabi was also taken aback by the fact that he did not know that this happens to them. The guy doesn't understand how a 5-year-old child could do this to a tree, while the girl says that this is quite possible. She names the type of tree, ginkgo. The gardener says it loves to be treated with respect. The ghost wonders if there is any connection between the type of tree and the nature of its spirit. But instead of answering, Shirabi notes that she knows nothing at all about her new partner. Ginkgo biloba is a type of tree that does not exist in this world. After opening the store 4 years ago, she wanted to attract customers with them. Then she went around to all the richest families in the state and planted one of these trees in their gardens. In her previous life in Korea, they could be found everywhere. They are strong and adapt to everything, and are also pleasing to the eye. Considering that the tree is kind and similar to a person, Shirabi suggests calling it Count or King so that it does not get upset. The girl says that in any case she will report everything to the owners of the site, but reminds the plant that it was she who planted and raised it. The tree apologizes to her, and she decides that they have come to a common understanding. After this, the main character begins to heal the tree, as she wanted to do at the beginning. Thanks to the magic of a talented gardener, withered branches are instantly overgrown with gorgeous young foliage. Night has come. Shirabi, already in her store, shakes off her hands after a long work in which she prepared as many as 100 seedlings. Pierre says that she is very generous, and that this will be more than enough for the Imperial family. She, taking the cart with the seedlings outside, agrees and says that some of them can be planted near their house. The guy catches up with her and wonders why the girl is doing this in the middle of the night. The girl replies that there are many people in the palace during the day and she wants to avoid unnecessary glances. She doesn't want to look weird talking to trees. At the same time, she says that someone else's attention can be useful if you suddenly lose consciousness. Passers-by will be able to help. And last time, working with burnt trees was much more difficult and energy-consuming than this, in which you just need to plant seedlings. Pierre is tormented by another question. What's wrong with that same axe that the main character always takes with her? Shirabi says that it is made of a soft material, but with some effort it can cut down trees. She bought it for 3 gold. It is very useful for her, as it helps to threaten spirits and cut wood. As an example, she cites the recent case of the ginkgo spirit. Her partner asked if this meant that she was simply cutting down trees for them, to which she menacingly replied that no. Pierre did not expect such a surge of emotion from the girl, so he thought that he had said something wrong. Shirabi says that people and spirits are not the same. Evil can settle in a person's heart, or it can also leave. But perfumes are completely different. Their emotions may not change throughout their lives unless someone helps them to do so. Just in case, the girl repeats to the guy once again that she doesn't cut down trees just like that. Pulling the cart again, the gardener expresses her joy that Pierre is more like a man than a spirit. He, remembering the words of the spirit that only a person can give love to a person, hurried to catch up with his girlfriend. The day is coming. Shirabi angrily tells the palace knights to stop, thanks them for their work, and asks them to pretend they don't know her. She grabs several seedlings and leaves the men, who do not understand why the girl is suddenly so angry. Her partner decides to ask what caused such emotions in the girl. After all, Pierre noticed how her mood changed as soon as she entered the Imperial estates. Shirabi says that her mood was destined to sour because she saw the mess in the newly built garden. Seething with anger, she blames everything on the Imperial gardeners, who should have removed the stones, dust, and lime from the garden. The guy remembers that a friend once said that she was not on good terms with the Imperial gardeners. Based on this, he asks why they are so dismissive of her. Looking at the dust, Shirabi says that he doesn't know and assumes that they came here too early and didn't have time to clean everything up. However, the girl assures that they should restore order because it will not be possible to plant trees in such contaminated soil. She bows her head directly to the soil and asks nature to help her cleanse the earth, delighting her with the fact that she has brought little friends. The request for help is immediately responded to by the magical fairy, who in turn asks the wind to help her. Together they willingly sweep away all the stones, sticks, dust, and other dirt from the Imperial garden. A few seconds later the ground was cleared, making the palace seem to shine with new colors. Shirabi, seeing such beauty, admiringly declared that she was now in the mood to work. Pierre, watching the girl, begins to feel strange. This happens whenever she uses her power. His face and neck were covered with a blush, which makes it obvious that the nature of this feeling has romantic features. However, the gardener, noticing the guy busy with something unknown, accused him of shirking work. He became even more embarrassed and urgently asked his friend not to pay attention to him. But he couldn't stop Shirabi, who came right up to his face, peering intently. After this, the girl leaves without saying a word, and the guy breathed a sigh of relief. After some time, the gardener finished her work, planting quite a number of seedlings. Evaluating her work, the girl considers what color of wood would go well with the design of the palace. She thinks about pink, but immediately rejects this option. A man suddenly appears from behind and asks the worker what color she thinks would go perfectly together. Turning around, Shirabi notices an expensively dressed gentleman. She suggested that it could be one of the Imperial managers. The gentleman gets tired of the main character's silence, so he asks her about the color. Suddenly, the gardener admits that instead of planting new trees, it would be better to decorate the ones already in the garden with flowers. The gentleman wonders if this means that the girl does not want to plant new trees. Shirabi, sweating profusely, says that he thinks it best to plant only half of the seedlings. She herself thinks about who this stranger could be. Suddenly, she goes off topic and asks the man who he is. The gentleman was at first surprised by this, and then laughed at such a stupid question. His answer surprised the girl even more. She will soon learn his name, but for now he asks to decorate the palace as she sees fit. The man remembered that the person in front of him was the same gardener who had recently restored the burnt garden. At this moment, Shirabi realizes that this is the crown prince. However, the prince sets a condition. He wants the rose tree from the garden to be here too. The gentleman continued to say something to Shirabi, but she did not hear him, because she was thinking about how this meeting annoys her. But she immediately thought about the benefits in her favor. Working for such a rich family, she should earn a lot of money. Based on these thoughts, she makes a statement that if the crown prince changes the working conditions, the price of services will increase. The girl also says that instead of large trees, it would be appropriate to plant small flower beds here. But working with flowers is not her main specialty, so she will charge an additional fee for harvesting and moving new seedlings. The prince agrees and promises to convey all the conditions to the treasurer, which makes the gardener smile with satisfaction. Already leaving Shirabi, the master says that he is looking forward to seeing what a beautiful garden she will make for him. She bowed after him. As soon as the crown prince left, she allowed her emotions of joy to pour out. But suddenly Pierre distracts her, saying that she did a good job. The girl asks what he means. The guy says that when you meet someone with a higher status than you immediately start to get nervous, and that's normal. But instead, Shirabi bargained with the crown prince himself, which causes the guy a slight feeling of shame. Filling the watering can with water, the girl says that there is nothing wrong with this, because she is not afraid of anything. But at the same moment she begins to doubt because, according to her, there are different fears. Hearing this, Pierre decides to ask his friend to talk about what fears she has. In response, with a very gloomy face, she said that most of all she was afraid of the money ghost. Shirabi changes the subject and says that the crown prince's visit is a little strange because he is known to be a busy man. Pierre also thinks that the prince probably does not consider himself someone special, since this is the first time he has seen a person of imperial blood behave like this. Some time passes. The gardener is busy at work, scattering plant seeds on the ground. Her friend notices this and with a dissatisfied face asks the girl to pay attention to him. She responded, after which Pierre gloomily reminds her that she charges an additional fee for the purchase and transportation of seedlings, which is not happening now. Suddenly, Shirabi says that she lied about all this for the sake of money, which again makes the guy feel ashamed for his friend. Peering at the seeds scattered on the grass, Pierre wonders what she is going to do, because these are the most ordinary seeds. The gardener assures that this species is easier to change and gives the example of a rose tree, which does not exist in their world. She admits that there is one problem, which is the architecture of this palace, and because of this, she cannot choose flowers that match the design. Pierre is surprised, because he thought that Shirabi already knew in advance what variety she needed. The girl says she has some options, but there are so many that she doesn't even know what to choose. She decides to ask Pierre if he has any ideas. He was lost in thought, but suddenly they are distracted by a voice coming from nearby that persistently calls Shirabi. The girl immediately guesses that these are the trees asking for attention. The couple moved closer to the tall tree, which it turns out has its own opinion about the flower bed. After listening to his proposal, the gardener promised that she would listen to him. The day passes. The garden at the palace is now decorated with a clearing of flowers and many pink trees. This beauty is admired by knights, servants, and the personal envoy of the crown prince. Shirabi admires the work done with a satisfied smile and presents the master with a new garden. The prince, looking at the flowers, also admires the garden, which has been so transformed in such a short time. Reminding that this is a garden for a child, the gardener praises white flowers, a color that symbolizes innocence, plus they go perfectly with pink trees. At this moment, the messenger of the master is watching the girl. He recognizes her ability to surprise. He admires the fact that Shirabi, unlike other gardeners, made many previously unseen plants bloom at once. The man even thinks that the main character's abilities go beyond common sense. He has no idea what kind of trees the gardener planted and is sure that no one but her knows this. In the end, he wonders where she gets so many seedlings from a tree that is unknown to the whole world. Gently touching Shirabi's shoulder, the prince's envoy praises her for such a gorgeous result, even though there are still a few things left to do in the garden. At this time, the crown prince is distracted by a pink petal that fell right next to his foot. Having examined it more closely, the gentleman marvels aloud at how small they are and how many there are. Shirabi and the messenger turn towards the sound, as if they heard something surprising. Suddenly, the crown prince turns to the gardener with a proposal. Would she like to continue working in the Imperial palace? At first, the girl was angry at his words, but after pulling herself together, she politely reminded him that she had already rejected this proposal more than once. Examining the petal, the prince wonders why she does not agree. In response, the gardener also repeats that she has already explained the reason many times. The gentleman says that her words did not reach him, after which he politely asks her to explain herself. She, sighing heavily, asks the envoy how much money will be spent on the toll this time. He names approximately 4 gold. Shirabi then asks about the salary of the Imperial gardeners. The man says that it is 15 gold per month. The girl admits that every time she goes to get new types of plants, she pays a tax of 4 gold, and once she goes to buy plants only 4 times, the costs outweigh her salary. Taking her watering can, the girl says that her work is finished, and then leaves the men. But suddenly she decides to return to the crown prince and remind him about the additional payment for services, which is 25 gold. Pierre, who saw such impudent behavior of his friend, almost fell into the ground with shame. He asks the girl if she still has a drop of conscience and fear in her soul, to which Shirabi says that nothing will happen to her. As she already said, she just wants to make money. The girl recalls that she has vivid memories from a past life where she lived for 19 years, but was never able to join society. The gentleman's next words surprised the gardener. He offers her a salary of 100 gold. According to him, this way she can become an imperial gardener without loss to herself and takes care of the garden of the imperial family. Suddenly, Shirabi covers his face with his palm in irritation and sighs heavily. She, having asked His Majesty for forgiveness in advance for her rudeness, says that the cost of work in his garden will be no less than 140 gold. The girl also adds that even a salary of 100 gold pieces will not be enough for the imperial gardener. And finally, she says that she doesn't have that much free time to take care of her master's garden. Based on this, Shirabi concludes that she is forced to refuse. But if the prince needs her services, then she is ready to perform individual tasks. After all that had been said, the girl glanced sideways at Pierre, who clearly acted as if he wanted to dissuade her. The gardener was already getting ready to leave, wondering whether the gentleman would risk offering her this position again after his personal refusal. But suddenly she hears absolutely shocking words from the prince. He offers to increase the salary by 500 gold. His Majesty reminds that no one but him has the right to decide what salary the Imperial gardener deserves. The master is counting on Shirabi's consent, which puts her in an even more shocking situation. The prince also promises that he will also pay for all the girl's additional expenses. The gardener was so surprised by what was happening that she thought that it was all suspicious, and she couldn't be so lucky. She again wanted to say that she refused, but the gentleman beat her to it, saying that she could not do this. He explains that if she refuses again, she will show disrespect for the imperial family, and he will accuse her of disloyalty. Shirabi despairingly falls to the ground, not understanding why God gave her such a punishment and what is wrong with this prince. His Majesty, having examined the beauty around him, again praised the talented gardener for her work. Already at home, the exhausted main character says that she wants to leave the country, to which Pierre says that she needs knowledge of a foreign language. The guy assures the girl that if she agrees, then all paths will be open to her. In addition, this is not an ordinary event, but an international one. Shirabi slams her fist on the table and says that's why she doesn't want to do this. She is talking about an event that is considered very important. The girl admits that she cannot stand it. The gardener is sure that if she tries her best, she will have even more ill-wishers. Pierre asks his friend whether her relationship with the Imperial gardeners is really that bad. Shirabi says that's not entirely true, and in general, she's just too lazy to give her all and fulfill a bunch of responsibilities. The girl admits that she understands the feelings of those gardeners, since she herself is the owner of the garden. Pierre says that it is not entirely correct for the main character to compare herself with them. Suddenly, the guy asks Shirabi to pay attention to the door, on which someone has been knocking for a long time. The gardener says that she is aware of this and that she hung a closed sign on the door, which the stranger ignores. Taking a deep breath, the girl nevertheless decides to go and open the door to this persistent client. Pierre began to worry at that moment. He thinks it would be nice to keep an eye on his friend and find out who came to them. Opening the door of the store, Shirabi saw in front of her a cute little girl with big eyes. Beaming with a smile, the girl politely asked the saleswoman for one flower. If this had been an adult, the gardener would have immediately slammed the door in his face. But this is a child, so she decides to control herself. She also politely tells the girl that she does not grow flowers and recommends that she go to another store. But the child doesn't think of leaving because she was told that Shirabi's store is the most popular place. The main character sighs wearily at the thought that she is now an ordinary florist for everyone. The little girl repeats her request again. She really wants to give a gift to her mother. After telling Shirabi a story about her mother, who is soon going to marry her father, the girl says that she wants to give her mother a nice wedding gift. An angel and a demon are spinning around the main character's head. One says that this is a waste of time, and the other declares that she is just a child. In the end, the angel wins, after which the gardener asks what kind of bouquet she wants to give. In response, the girl hands her a drawing, which makes her even more perplexed. The gardener suggests that it is a flower called a lily. Pierre, noticing that Shirabi is going to make a bouquet out of politeness, says the quote, "Trials are not an obstacle to love." The girl, with a drop of irritation on her face, says that she doesn't understand what he's talking about. She explains that the flower she needs grows only in hard-to-reach places and only at higher elevations. It blooms its buds despite the mountain winds and storms. The gardener understands that it is impossible to determine exactly what kind of flower it is from the picture, so she will have to go to the cliff and check it herself. The main character agrees to the girl's order and gives her a notebook with a drawing. However, she warns the client that the price will be much higher than usual, since the flowers she needs are not so easy to find. The little girl asks the saleswoman to clarify the exact amount of the service. Taking into account the cost of travel and the complexity of the task, Shirabi says that at best it will cost 20 gold, and maybe more. Bursting with tears, the girl hands the gardener one 5-gold coin that she brought with her. But her mood instantly improves when, out of pity, the girl makes a discount for her. Shirabi tells her to come for the bouquet the day after tomorrow and not to forget about it. The child agrees and bows as a sign of gratitude. After this, they say goodbye cheerfully, and the client leaves the gardener's shop. Time passes and evening comes. The gardener puts comfortable shoes on her feet, as if she is going somewhere. Pierre notices this and tries to stop her, because his girlfriend has not slept for a whole day. However, Shirabi says that she needs to go flower shopping because she cannot make a bouquet of flowers that she has never seen before. The guy asks her if she will feel overwhelmed when the time comes to go to the Imperial Palace. Therefore, he asks the girl not to do this and asks whether it would be easier for her to simply modify the flowers growing here, to which she refuses. Leaving the store, the gardener explains that flowers are many times weaker than trees and tells her friend not to worry about her. Suddenly, Shirabi, walking along a path through the forest, is caught up by Pierre and asks to stop. The girl, pointing her finger into the distance, asks the guy if this place is suitable, but after looking around, she doubted whether this was the right road at all. Pierre even suspects that she does not know where to go, because they are walking along this road for the third time. Shirabi covered her ears from his indignation and asked him to let her think, after which they moved on. 20 minutes later, when the sun had already set, the couple came across a high, steep mountain. Seeing this, the girl already began to think that she had made a mistake, and all this time she had been going to the wrong place. Sighing, Pierre asks his friend to finally admit that she too has her shortcomings. The gardener is in no hurry to accept this, but admits that she, like any other person, has a couple of shortcomings. While the friend is peering at the top of the mountain, the guy says that he guessed why she decided to start searching in the afternoon. But suddenly, Shirabi begins to call a certain Le Filet, which slightly alarmed Pierre. He wanted to find out what she was doing or who she was calling, but he could not do this through her screams. Suddenly, very high on the mountain, a beautiful bush of flowers responded and asked if it was his name. The gardener replies that it is so, and that she wants to take the flower for herself. When the flower asked why she wanted it, Shirabi said that some girl really wanted to give it to her mother. After this, a beautiful girl came down from the mountain, the same beauty as this flower, looking like a fairy. She asks if they really want to give it as a gift, after which the main character answers positively. The gardener wanted to explain to Le Filet that if she didn't want to, she wouldn't do it. But the fairy still said that she agreed, even if we were talking about a small child. Shirabi explains to the lady that this girl may be clumsy in caring for her, such as skipping watering times or, conversely, watering too often. But Le Filet asked the girl to shut up, placing her index finger on her lips, and then reminding her that she was aware of all this. Flying back, the fairy says that she will figure everything out herself, but the main character will have to work hard to pick her up. Possessing herself back into her flower, Le Filet asks Shirabi to do whatever it takes to get her. The girl immediately decides to act and takes a long, thick rope out of the bucket. Pierre begins to worry and says that one rope is not enough for insurance and wants to offer his help to his friend. However, the gardener, tying her waist tighter, tells him not to worry and that she will climb there alone and handle everything. The guy continues to say that Shirabi can fall and break her neck, to which she is surprised why he even thought that she would fall. Soon the girl was confidently climbing the rock, making her way closer and closer to the flower. She was supported by little fairies who flew around her and shouted comforting phrases. But Pierre, in comparison with them, was not so calm and seemed to have a presentiment of trouble. He decided to fly closer to the girl and call out to her, but she did not pay any attention to him. Suddenly, what the guy was so afraid of happened. Shirabi, tripping over a stone, began to fall down the mountain. Before Pierre had time to understand something, suddenly a tree that was growing on a rock not far from them screamed that it would now help the gardener. Pulling one of her branches towards the unfortunate girl, the girl deftly grabs it, which saves her life. Having calmed down a little, she feels with her foot a ledge in the rock on which she leans so as not to fall again. A few minutes later, having spent a decent amount of energy, Shirabi successfully crawls to her target. She digs up a flower, after which fairies begin to circle around her again, congratulating her on her victory. Thanks to their magic, the girl painlessly descends to the ground with a flower. Having planted the extracted beauty in a bucket, she tiredly sat down on the ground and admitted that it was difficult to climb the mountain. Shirabi notices his rather small wound on his knee, which also stings a lot. Pierre grumbles that he already warned her about such consequences. He says that no matter how strong she is, the gardener can still be seriously injured or even die. The one who is already tired of listening to her friend's dissatisfaction covers her ears with her hands. Suddenly, Pierre, with a deft movement, grabbing a bucket with a flower, takes the girl into his arms, surprise written on her face. Shirabi says that she understands that because of the wound on her leg, she will not be able to walk, but still does not understand why her friend is doing this. The ghost, comparing the girl to a small child, says that he himself will carry her home. After some consideration, the gardener happily agrees with him and allows him to help her, and the guy, seeing her reaction, suggested that she liked to be carried in her arms. After a while, they find themselves in a shop where Shirabi transplanted Lephileia into a pot. The fairy of this flower also did not have to wait long, and the main character decided to ask her about where it would be better to place her. She says that she simply hates the heat and the scorching sun, but prefers the cool shade. Shirabi writes everything down in a notebook. But suddenly, Lephileia decides to ask her why she is looking after her so carefully. Flying closer, the fairy wonders if the gardener is doing all this so that she refuses to be a gift. The girl explains that if the tree only has roots left, it will still be able to germinate again. However, with flowers, everything is different. When transplanted, they often dry out quickly. Lephileia laughs and says that it doesn't matter, and that she can still bring joy to people. The fairy shares the main character's feelings that spirits should stay in the same place with their plant all their lives and live in comfort. But at the same time, she believes that this is all pointless, and she will be happy if she can make someone happier with her bright life. Touching the fingers of Shirabi, who is not happy to hear such words, Phileia says that everyone has different desires, and one day she will understand her too. In the meantime, she decides to give the gardener her blessing. She blesses her for good luck in the relationship. The girl is perplexed by her words, as if she wants to cry. After this, Lephileia's spirit disappears. Noticing his friend's drooping mood, Pierre wanted to support her and ask how she was feeling. In response, she sarcastically wonders why she should be out of order. Shirabi can't believe that this flower wanted to do this from the very beginning. She admits that being a gardener is not that easy. Having anxiously drunk a glass of water, the girl sits down on a chair, sadly stating the fact that she has to listen to all this. Now she says with relief that she can finally rest, when suddenly there are knocks on the door. Fired to the point of flames coming out of her mouth, the gardener opens the door to the visitor and shouts that the sign says, "Closed." The man was taken aback by the girl's greeting, while she continued to scold him for his late arrival. But Shirabi stops screaming when he recognizes the stranger as one of the knights of the Imperial Palace. The man was glad that the girl recognized him, after which he confirmed that he was just a knight. And he came for a reason. The guy returns the gardener her tool, which she left in the palace. But at this moment, his attention is drawn to the wound on the main character's leg, from which blood is still flowing heavily. Shirabi didn't have time to understand anything when the Imperial Knight carefully wrapped a scarf around her knee. After this, the knight says that she looks tired, so he won't keep her long. He hopes that the gardener will return to them tomorrow. The man leaves the store, leaving the girl, who could not utter a word, with a lot of questions. Pierre noticed her puzzled expression and ironically asked if she regretted not being able to hit that guy. Shirabi gets angry again and says that she didn't need to do this, and then asks her friend who he thinks she is. The gardener leaves the room, leaving Pierre alone with his bad joke. But still, the guy sighs with relief that his girlfriend's deep wound is now rewound. Next, he squats down and tries to touch a small first aid kit, but his hand goes through the object. The spirit of Lephileia, who has been watching him all this time, asks Pierre if he is used to living in his intangible body. He admits that being a person who should have a physical body, he now behaves unnaturally. The fairy says that it looks as if he is not saying something. The guy says that human relationships are thoroughly saturated with lies, which is not the case with spirits, so now there is no point in lying to him. A day later, the young client receives her order, the beauty of which she cannot take her eyes off. Shirabi gives the child her coin and tells her not to come to her anymore because she no longer plans to farm them. The girl says that she understood everything and joyfully thanks the gardener for her services. After that, she, beaming with happiness, runs home from the gardening store. Remembering the fairy's words that she would be glad that she could give someone a smile, Shirabi herself smiles, looking after the girl. Meanwhile, the young client, who has already lost her former enthusiastic smile, walks with a flower along a dark alley. She enters a dark house where a certain girl was already waiting for her. She asks if she did everything as she told her. The girl replies that she did everything that way, after which she hands the lady a pot with a plant. She is very happy about this. She takes it away and puts it on the table, surprised that she was able to get the real Lephileia. The girl recalls that 3 years have passed since the main character appeared in the capital, and thereby created a sea of problems for her. She grabs the business card of Shirabi's garden shop and mercilessly burns it in the fire. The girl promises herself that she will never allow her offender to be appointed responsible for organizing a festival in honor of the founding of the country. The flower she has endures strong winds, storms, and produces beautiful buds. But like roses that have thorns, the fragile-looking Le Filet also has her weapons. If its petals are ground into powder and added to a drink, the drinker will die from the paralyzing poison. The girl says that she will be happy to watch the flower that Shirabi found with such difficulty stick a knife in her back. At this time, the gardener is bargaining with a man at the table. She is not satisfied with the price she was offered in exchange for the goods. She tells her interlocutor that she is not some small gardener as he thinks, for which the man invites her to set the price herself. The girl says that she will take 75 silver coins and not a coin less for the trees. The man was not consoled by the price, to which Shirabi justifies that the trees are unusual and are sold only in her store. The buyer begins to get angry because he will not be able to reduce the price, although he was counting on the youth and inexperience of the gardener. The man summarizes that she will sell all the trees and growth accelerators in the box for 95 gold. But suddenly his eyes lit up with the hope of buying everything cheaper when the girl began to say that she would give him a special bonus. But in reality, it turned out that Shirabi would simply give him a 1-coin discount. The man gave up hope that it would be a gold coin, but seeing the gardener's dissatisfaction, he assumed that it was silver. The saleswoman replied that it was a bronze coin and that she had never seen anything given away for next to nothing. The buyer was very upset because a discount of 1 bronze coin would hardly allow him to save any money from the amount. Having bought everything at the set price, the man left the store, bursting into tears, and the gardener happily waved him goodbye. Shirabi, being in 7th heaven, began to count her money, imagining how she would pay off a little more of the debt. But Pierre asks her to stop counting the coins, because they won't go anywhere, and it's better to think about the upcoming festival in honor of the founding of the country. The guy then asks if her reluctance to deal with this festival is that great, to which the gardener suggests that he himself would not want to organize it. Shirabi says that if she orders the Imperial gardeners to do something, the only response she will hear is their dissatisfaction with her bossing them around. Because of this, preparation for the festival, according to the girl, will turn into a living hell. Then Pierre asks her what she is going to do. Laughing, the girl says that perhaps this very night she will be able to escape to another country, which displeases her friend. When suddenly a man appears in the room whom Shirabi and Pierre never expected to see. This unexpected guest turned out to be the crown prince. The girl, although in a state of shock, did not forget to greet him intelligently. She, remembering the bag of money that she recently received, hides it, throwing it into a box with plants. The gardener jokes that the gentleman has nothing to do at all. He says that he decided to come to her in person. The prince asks if she really doesn't want to take part in the future festival. The girl does not answer his questions, but only makes a dissatisfied face. Next, the crown prince makes it clear that he knows about her debt, and a very large one at that. The gentleman says that if last time it didn't work out to persuade the girl with the help of a stick in the form of threats, now he wants to do it with the help of a carrot. This time, the prince offers Shirabi 1,000 gold for her services and promises to give the entire amount right away. The main character was very surprised at first, and then thought about her creditor and how the Imperial gardeners would treat her. But despite this, she falls to her knees in front of the crown prince, rosily declaring that she agrees. Pierre, watching his girlfriend's next race for money, again feels ashamed of her. As soon as the prince left, Shirabi immediately began to rack her brain over what she should do with so many coins. The guy asks if she wanted to pay off the debt, to which she says that she has already collected the amount that she must pay back next month. The gardener is immensely happy to realize that for the first time in her life, she has so much money that will remain in her hands. She is thinking about expanding the store a little and giving it a facelift. Then she generally says that in this situation, she can buy a neighboring kindergarten. Next, she invites Pierre to get some kind of pet, for example, a cat or a dog. But he says that he doesn't want any cats because he is allergic to them. Shirabi wanted to laugh at the spirit who had allergies when she suddenly heard a knock. The couple immediately noticed him. Opening the door to the visitor, the girl saw in front of her a gorgeous bouquet of red roses, which was even larger than herself. She calmly tells the man with the bouquet that she is not a florist and that the flowers are still alive, but she does not know how to help him. But suddenly, an experienced Imperial knight peeks out from behind the bouquet and wonders if the gardener remembers him. Handing flowers to the lady, the guy says that he brought them not because he has some kind of request for her. Elegantly kissing Shirabi's hand, the knight says that this is a gift for her. While the girl does not understand what is happening, the boyfriend is surprised that despite the fact that she has a flower shop, she said that she does not sell flowers. The guy walks into the store, looking at everything around and assuming that her store is probably very beautiful. He goes on to say that his name is Kyan, and, as she already knows, he is a knight. Shirabi sheepishly agrees with this. Suddenly, Kyan, plucking up courage, asks the main character if she will be free during the festival in honor of the founding of the country. The knight says that after the end of the procession, he will be free all the time, so he would like to spend the festival together with Shirabi. The girl wanted to answer something, but he beat her to it, saying that she could communicate her decision directly on the day of the holiday. Having advised her to think carefully, Kyan hurried to leave, since today he would have to stand guard. Having asked for forgiveness if he distracted the gardener from work, the knight says goodbye, wishing to see him soon. Shirabi remains standing like a pillar, not uttering a single word out of shock. But suddenly she is surprised that this knight has never been to the festival in honor of the founding of the country, while Pierre says that this is not the case at all. The main character does not see any romantic catch in Kyan's behavior, so she decides that he simply has no friends and decided to call her. The ghost sighs in annoyance and asks if she is really going to accept his invitation. The guy asks this for a reason because, as it turned out, he also wanted to go with Shirabi during the festival. In response, the girl is upset that Pierre also has no friends, but she remembers that he cannot have them because only she can see him. Having torn a hair from his head, the gardener says that she can tie it to him for good luck, and then even offers to go to the festival with Kyan instead of her. Saddened, Pierre leaves the girl, regretting what he said. Shirabi still couldn't understand what he wanted. A short period of time passes. Having placed the roses in a vase, the girl remembers the words of Le Filet that she wants to be a gift and delight her recipient, after which she smiles at the fact that, to some extent, she was able to understand her words. Pierre looked at her smile so much that he spilled water for the tree. He thinks about how his girlfriend usually only smiles when she sees money. Suddenly, he has a startling realization. She's smiling because she likes Kyan. Thus, a certain misunderstanding took root. Some time later in the Imperial Palace, Shirabi plants the last seedling in the ground and waters it with a growth accelerator. Having finished her work, she admires the beautiful garden that she herself transformed. Pierre says that today the garden shines with a special brilliance, while the girl reluctantly accepts his compliment. An old man who unexpectedly appeared nearby declares that the gardener's power is slowly growing, and she is having some influence on the plants nearby. Noticing that the spirit speaks of her strength, the girl asks him to tell him more about it. However, her partner himself argues that before the plants were not particularly friendly, but now they themselves are taking the initiative to help. Shirabi herself also notices that the spirit of the flower has become much more distinct than that of the babies she saw before. She then asks the old man if the fact that she is getting stronger is a good sign. The spirit says that this process cannot be viewed from only one side, because every action has its own reaction. Even if someone wants to lead a peaceful life, there's a high probability that he will not succeed. The old man adds that everywhere there are those who envy people born with such talent. The spirit warned Shirabi about the danger and that it was not good to make many enemies, because 3 years ago, one unpleasant incident had already happened to the main character. Pierre asks what kind of incident happened 3 years ago, to which the girl, covered in sweat, says that it was just a small absurdity. 3 years ago, all gardeners began to consider Shirabi their #1 enemy. Because of this, the girl had to often erase nasty inscriptions addressed to her. And one day at that time, 2 men told her that, according to rumors, she was the owner of the most profitable shop in the capital. They also said that, according to rumors, the main character has no moral principles at all, and she does not even know what shame is. Another man confirms that the blue-eyed little guy does not understand the essence of the matter and has absolutely no respect for his older colleagues. His friend agreed with him that whatever comes back will come back to her. As a result, the two cemented the belief that Shirabi would not last long in his job. But at that moment the girl did not tolerate their bullying and stated that they had no right to harm someone else's store and make threats against her. The men say that everything they have was earned with blood and sweat, that they did not threaten her, but only gave advice. Having nailed the girl with a click, they left, complaining that their mood had completely deteriorated and they could no longer be in this place. The angry Shirabi had no choice but to watch the offenders leave. And the point was not that she was very guilty of something then. Time returns to the present, where the beautiful young lady admires her transformed garden. Her servant says that all this was done by the new gardener who, although young, is very talented. In fact, 3 years ago, the main character was disliked due to ordinary envy. In gardening, she was head and shoulders above the others. From the past, a memory emerges of Shirabi seeing a mountain of notes on her desk, after which she asks the butler what it all means. The butler replies that these are requests sent by the Duke's wife and her friends, and this means that every mansion in their capital offers the girl a job. The gardener was very surprised by this news. After hearing this story, it became obvious to Pierre that this had definitely caused an outburst of discontent among the other gardeners. The guy even suggests that the capital's gardeners could lose their livelihood, which the girl also agrees with. Shirabi says that, of course, she is pleased, but because of her, gardeners lost their jobs, so she understands perfectly why those people hated her. Because of this, she had to change the way she did business, which her partner had already noticed. One of these methods is that her store is now closed 3 days a week, and on weekdays she only accepts a strictly limited number of requests. Pierre praises his friend and expresses the opinion that she accepted a good compromise. Shirabi supports his words and says that after these measures were introduced, the other gardeners left her alone, with the exception of the Imperial ones. The ghost was upset when he heard this and asked why the girl did not please them so much. The main character replies that people with an inferiority complex do not need a reason to start doing all sorts of nasty things. A moment emerges from her memory of how she wanted to open the doors to another client, but instead received a rotten egg in the face. She wiped her eyes and looked at the floor, on which sheets of various offensive expressions were scattered. Shirabi admits that the rotten eggs and hostile leaflets were just the beginning until she saw more. Having squeezed through the crowd, which was looking at the gardener's mutilated property, the girl saw her sign that had been smashed to smithereens. She thinks that breaking the sign was quite childish, but what she saw after that really shocked her. The gardener notices her plants were brutally killed by her haters. The plant spirits also could not survive. This scared Shirabi the most. Traces of abuse of her plants were visible everywhere, but that was not all. The gardener also notices white powder that was scattered on the ground. She realizes that it is a herbicide, which makes her demonically angry. The girl was so angry that, ignoring the entire crowd, she ran to the store and closed there. Shirabi placed a warning sign in front of the store, but she believes the bullying will not stop just because of the sign. Suddenly, the main character sadly says that she should not have opened her store there. In the past, the excesses of the Imperial gardeners continued, which was the last straw for her, and in one cunning way, she decided to take revenge for all her crippled trees. The girl breaks out of her memories and touches one tree in the Imperial garden and says that this is her revenge. Pierre, hearing the name of the tree 6-day mock, was surprised because he had never heard such a thing before. Shirabi confirms that before she created him, he truly did not exist. Suddenly, the gardener says that this tree is poisonous, after which Pierre swears at her because she's still touching him. But the girl reassures him that nothing will happen from touching this tree, and the problems will begin for the one who seriously wants to harm the 6-day mocha. When damaged, the tree releases liquid, which immediately causes severe vomiting in its offender. Shirabi also adds that after poisoning a person will have a fever, so he will suffer for another 6 days. Thus, the main character paid for all the atrocities of the Imperial gardeners. Having heard the consequences of poisoning, Pierre guesses where the name 6-day mock came from. The gardener says that even when an inspection came to her from the Imperial palace, they could not accuse her of anything. And then Shirabi filed a complaint against the Imperial gardeners for the damage caused. She recalls that after this incident they calmed down, but strained relations remained between them. The girl imagines the gardeners' reaction when they learned that she would be organizing the festival. But suddenly, the spirit began to talk about the fact that it is not only people who need to beware. The girl asks to explain this in more detail. The elder is aware that recently the main character has often visited the Imperial palace. Based on this, he says that in the palace garden with one tree, what the girl was so afraid of happened. Shirabi is surprised that the condition of the man-made tree has begun to deteriorate.